Welcome to Let Us Go Deeper. In this fifth season, Pastor Inskip Alsop and Joel Amenya journey through the book of Revelation. The Everlasting Gospel. Pastor, we are stepping in here to this episode where we are really going to look at the gospel and its nature as it's laid out in Revelation. But before we do that, let us recap on some of the big points from the last lesson and some of the areas that maybe you've been thinking about and going deeper into as we looked through the Satan and his cronies.
Yeah, because when we look at Satan and his cronies, and I like that term, we see the beast, the first beast that comes out of the sea, that looks like a leopard, a lion, and a bear, that reminds us of Daniel's image. We see this other beast that comes out of the land that has the horns of a lamb, but speaks like a lion, like a dragon. Showing, therefore, that while this other beast, this other political system, seems to have a gentle, Christ-like appearance and nature, when it speaks, when it acts, when it shows its true colors, it is just like the other beast that we saw. These two beasts form a coalition at some point in the future in which they are coercing worship, forcing the world to worship the first beast, which we have identified as the papal system. There seems to be no other world power that is both religion and political that seems to match this description as the papacy. And then there's this mark of the beast that comes about. And the Revelation 13 ends with people receiving this mark of the beast either in their right hand or in their foreheads.
Yes, as compared to God's seal, which is only on the forehead.
Right. That to me is very significant. And I was thinking about that because it says these saints of God who are sealed, these 144,000, have washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb. It means that during the crisis, in all their ups and downs, they realize that their only dependence is on Jesus Christ, and they've leaned on His grace and His power to take them through the great tribulation. They receive the seal of God in their foreheads, the forehead representing your mind, your inner being, your soul, your spirit, your character even. So having God's seal on their foreheads mean they are sold out for Jesus, so to speak. Their characters reflect Him. Their service is a service of love and reason. They are intellectually, emotionally sold out and committed to God's way. On the other hand, those who receive the mark of the beast may receive it in the forehead, which means they have developed a beast-like character. They believe the beast's deception. They have been duped by the beast. Or on the right hand, meaning they are coerced. They may not believe it, but for convenience, they follow the beast in order to be able to continue buying and selling and saving their lives. I thought that was very significant, that the seal of God only goes in the forehead. It means God will only accept a service that is born
out of willingness and
willingness.
Love. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that really fits well into how we want to start this episode, because we want to talk about the Lamb and the 144. That's really where we want to start here as we look at chapter 14 of Revelation. And it's a very beautiful picture here painted in these initial verses of chapter 14 of the music and the big choir and the singing as the Lamb gathers with those who have become victorious.
Yes. And while John pictures the world in chaos, the world under the deception and the coercion and the persecution of the beast, and it would seem as though the whole world has followed after the beast. In fact, he says, and the whole world wandered after the beast. In Revelation chapter 13, he breaks away and shows us this group, this 144,000, who follow the Lamb where he goes, who have the Father's name on their foreheads, who have palm branches, who sing a new song, the song of Moses and the Lamb, who are without guile, there's only truth coming from their mouth, who have not been defiled by woman, meaning they have not embraced false teachings and religion because they have been true to God all time.
And those things you've just mentioned, interestingly, speak to the character of the people.
Yes. Yes. And so they follow the Lamb wherever he goes. I thought that was beautiful because at this point in time, the Lamb is about to return. He's about to judge. He has interceded and sealed redemption for his people, and he's about to leave and return to the earth. And they, even though they are suffering on the earth, physically, their minds and their spirits, as it were, are in heaven. They are focused in heaven. It reminds me of Paul's words in Colossians 3, where he says, 1, 2, and 3, where he says, set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. For you are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. Paul is saying in Colossians 3, 2, and 3, even though you're living on the earth, live in your mind, in your spirit, as if you're in heaven. Keep your mind on heavenly realities. It seems as though the 144,000, even during this time of great persecution, where the whole world has gone mad after the beast, their minds, their emotions, their intellect, their focus is on what Christ is doing in heaven. He is coming back as a great conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. And so they are not fazed by what is happening on the earth because they know their king is returning.
Yeah, and it's interesting that this picture, this very beautiful picture of the 144 and the Lamb is cast on the backdrop of Satan and his cronies having been defeated.
Yes.
Which is an interesting movement here, it seems to me.
Yes, because they sing victory to God. Because even though it seems as a lost cause, they know it is not. So they're singing God's victory and living God's victory, even in the face of their ascendancy of the beast on the earth and what he is doing. But not only that, when I think about God's great desire to win this victory, to conquer, I realize that until now, until this generation, God has not looked very good, quote unquote, in the eyes of the heavenly beings and other intelligences in the universe. Think about the flood. How many people were saved?
7.
Why 7? I thought it was 8.
Sorry, 8, yeah.
Right. That's not much people from a whole generation. Think about Sodom and Gomorrah. How many people were saved? It's even dicier then. We know that Lot, his wife, and their 2 daughters left Sodom. Lot's wife stayed on the pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And though Lot and his 2 daughters escaped to the hill, they had already been contaminated by Sodom, and we see what they did. Look at most of the times when God has had to work, he has had a very small group, almost like eking out, as it were, victory. So I believe the picture John is giving us here of the 144,000 is not of a numeric equivalency of 144 exact, but a complete picture of all God's people who will live in the earth in that time. That is why we have the 12 tribes and the 12 apostles being represented. And God has a whole generation of people who are standing firm at a time of the most severe persecution that has ever come upon God's people. He has some of the most faithful saints to stand and say, we will not bow. We will not worship the beast or his image. We will conquer the beast and his image through Jesus Christ. So it's a resounding victory.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I know in my spirit that this 144,000 doesn't represent a numerical quantity, but a quality of God having a full complement of saints in the end of time.
Now, that's a beautiful way to lay it out, because otherwise that number becomes very dim for a lot of people in the world. comparing the population and the world.
Over 7 billion people.
Yeah, and that's just the people alive today. When you put together the whole scope of history, that is a very small number. And at least looking at that from that perspective, it will give the sense that God is really giving here a symbol of what the people he wants to save in terms of the totality of it. Which I think is very consistent with what you've been saying about these numbers really being representative, not being precise numbers.
Right. And I like that because if it's just 144,000, the likelihood of you or me getting into it is lessened greatly.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a lotto, then there's a lotto. They said there's one in so many millions that you could win. And only usually one or two people win after all the people who play. But salvation has always been open to all. God so loved
the world
mm-hmm. that whosoever. So even in the end, there's always room for you. There's room for me. Anyone who chooses to make God supreme in their life can be part of this group.
Yeah.
There's space for all. And I believe the 144,000 represents that in each tribe, each characteristic, each kind of experience, there's a full complement. There's room for all. And the fact that they sing the song of Moses and the Lamb means that they are singing a song of redemption. Just as Moses took Israel out of Egypt, Christ has taken his children out of the persecuting power of the beast. So John is drawing on that image of Moses taking Israel out, crossing through the Red Sea to a new land. Christ takes his people out of spiritual Egypt, crosses them through the waters of persecution and trial, and brings them into a new land. And it's a whole multitude of people that no one can number. You could be part of that. I could be part of that number. And I think that's great hope for us all.
Yeah, and even this idea of following Jesus wherever he goes, I think really dovetails very well with the gospel, because the gospel being the good news about salvation, and ultimately the news that draws us to Jesus. It's the news that will keep us impressed and really pursuing this beauty and gloriousness that has been communicated to us. And I think, in the theme of this week, the everlasting gospel, you can almost say that the saints, these 144, are actually following Jesus because they have accepted what the gospel is, and they want to really enjoy what it's providing, what it's giving to them.
I would say so too, because while we see the world in general, the world relates to the unsaved, deceived by the beast. We see the 144,000 and we ask ourselves, what made them conquer? How did they conquer? How did they overcome and steal themselves from this deception? What was it that created this group? Well, the three angels' message that come out of Revelation 14 is telling us how these people were able to conquer. What was it? And the first angel, if you want to read it for me, verse 6, chapter 14, verse 6 and 7.
That reads, "And I saw another angel," this being the first angel, "flying through the sky, carrying the eternal good news to proclaim to the people who belong to this world, to every nation, tribe, language, and people. Fear God," he shouted, "give glory to him, for the time has come when he will sit as the judge. Worship him who made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all the springs of water."
Right. So, at some point in time, Joel, there is this worldwide proclamation. That is why we see the image of an angel, a messenger. Where is he?
Over the earth.
Yeah, flying. And, flying, he's able to cover a lot of territory.
Right.
Be seen by as many as possible. So the image here is of, at some point, the gospel goes out with great power. This is not a new gospel. It's an everlasting gospel. It is what Adam received in the garden. It is what Abraham received in Ur. It is what Jacob, Moses, and all the other saints and prophets.
So it's everlasting past and everlasting future.
Yes.
In its reach.
Yes, because Christ was the lamb slain from
before the beginning.
The foundation of the earth.
Right.
So whatever you come to grips that you are a sinner and there is hope for you, through Christ, you are connecting to this eternal stream of God's love that flows throughout Scripture and will continue to be the song of the redeemed throughout eternal ages, that we were unworthy, yet God saved us. So they are preaching this everlasting gospel. God loves, God cares, God wants to redeem. But there's something interesting in this message of the gospel. It is saying God loves because God is also going to judge. And this message is warning the world that this is the time to begin to acknowledge your allegiance, because while the beast is making miracles and forcing people to worship, there's a message coming saying, worship God, worship the Creator, the one who created the world. There's even an echo of the Sabbath here. Do you see the echo of the Sabbath here, Joel?
The creation story.
Yes. Worship him who made the heavens and the earth and the fountains of water. It sounds like the fourth commandment. So, in a sense, this message that points back is pointing us to God as creator, but it's also pointing forward him as judge. So the one who created us will also judge us.
Why is that an important connection to make?
Because the only one who has the authority to demand worship, to require worship, to expect worship, is the one who has created and sustained. So the beast is a false God who cannot give life, he cannot redeem, he cannot sustain this planet. So to worship this beast is to deny the one who gives you life and to marry death. So that is why they could say God is judge, because he is the one who owns this planet and owns all of us on it.
Yeah. And so it seems to me then the succession of these messages is really quick. And even before you go to the second angel, Pastor, the three angels message, you had made the point that three represents divinity. Does that have any relevance here in this number of three angels as well?
I hadn't thought about it before, but as you mentioned it, I could see where by having three messages that encompass the totality of God's message to the earth, and a time when the issue of worship is important, may be very significant in this sense. Because remember, we'll see later there's a triple alliance between the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet as a sort of false trinity. We come to that later on, but at least for now, we are seeing three messages coming from the throne of God.
So this could be seen as the fullness of the divine communication to humanity.
Yes, that takes in the sin problem that God has found a solution for, the gospel that says, fear God, give him glory. Why? Because he's your creator. Why? He's your redeemer. Why? He's your sustainer. And it keeps going on to the final message of mercy that will be given to the world before his judgment comes. And this is where the other angels' messages come in to be very significant.
Yeah, so let's move to the second angel. And his message is, that's Revelation 14:8. Then another angel followed him through the sky, shouting, Babylon is fallen, that great city is fallen, because she made all the nations of the world drink the wine of her passionate immorality.
Yes. Wine means often, not always, and we'll see that it has other meanings, teachings, doctrines. Why? Because wine, when you drink wine, it gladdens your spirit, you feel all buzzed and nice. It intoxicates you. So when it says they have drunk her wine, it means they have taken what she had to give them and it has intoxicated them. It has made them not in their right minds. So right now it says Babylon has given the world her wine to drink. Notice the imagery shifts to Babylon, because the two great deliverances God has worked for his people in the Old Testament for Israel was the taking them out of Egypt and then bringing them out of Babylon. Taking them out of Egypt, preserving them in, and then taking them out of Babylon. So now John is saying that Babylon, this great nation that says it's not just the great Babylon that once ruled the world, is fallen. Right? Her power is ending. She cannot hold you anymore. Because as the gospel message goes forward and is embraced, Babylon, false religion, Babylon meaning gates of the God, by the way, gates of the God, has to fall. It's impossible for you to believe and trust God and still hold on to Babylon. So as long as the gospel message is embraced and revealed, Babylon is exposed and she falls, meaning she loses her power to deceive, to coerce and control.
So why then is this contrast? Why is this message necessarily having a distinct messenger and not combined with the first message?
It's sort of like a progressive movement. So while the first angel is preaching, he doesn't stop proclaiming. This angel joins him and adds this new dimension. So John is showing the progression of this end time message to the world to save them. An example. Some people say all roads lead to Rome. People say, well, as long as I have love in my heart, it really doesn't matter if I worship God or not. It really doesn't matter if I go to church because I love my fellow man. So there's a sense that it doesn't really matter what I do as long as I am a good person. So this second message is saying no. Especially in this time when the beast, when Babylon is deceiving the world, calling worship upon herself and deceiving all, that this message should come and say, that time is ending. False religion is now exposed for what it is. All these isms and denominational stuff is being exposed as leading people away from truth and from life.
Yeah. And then now, right after that short proclamation of the second angel's message comes the third angel's message, which seems to be maybe the longest here.
It is.
And it reads, "Then a third angel followed them, shouting, 'Anyone who worships the beast and his statue, or who accepts his mark on the forehead or on the hand, must drink the wine of God's anger. It has been poured full strength into God's cup of wrath, and they will be tormented with fire and burning sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and the Lamb. The smoke of their torment will rise forever and ever, and they will have no relief day or night, for they have worshipped the beast and his statue and have accepted the mark of his name.'"
Yes. It is amazing that God's wrath is represented here as unmixed with mercy. Usually, God's wrath is always mixed with mercy, because he's a merciful God. And one may ask the question, why now? What is it that causes God to pour out his wrath without mercy? Has God gotten angry? Has he gotten fed up? Has he become vindictive? What do you think, Joel? Has God become vindictive and so angry that he's lashing out at humanity?
No, I think God is trying to finally create that kind of separation that will guarantee the benefits for those who have trusted him. And so he has to put he has to put his foot on the ground to secure that future for those who have given their lives to him.
Yes. I must confess that when God's wrath is poured out, especially as pictured in Revelation, it seems cruel and harsh. Because as much as God is merciful perfectly, when he must give judgment, it is also a righteous, perfect judgment that matches the crime, so to speak.
Yeah.
And in this particular time, there is really no hope for the beast worshippers. They have totally sold out to the deception of the beast. There would be no good for themselves or the world should God keep them alive.
Yeah.
And this is the image here. This is final judgment. Probation has closed. There's no more opportunity for salvation for those who have worshipped the beast. In this time, when the angels are proclaiming the message with power, Babylon is fallen. Get out of her, my people. Remove yourself from this fallen system. Recognize what she's doing, and we shall look later on at this Babylon and see what she has done to the world. When this message is going forward with such power and might, for people to hold on to the beast, hold on to false worship, hold on to false religion, hold on to their idols, hold on, you have rejected God. And as you rightly said, he has to wrap things up finally, because there are people who are faithful. There are people who are being persecuted, who are being killed for him, who are saying, we believe in you, God. How long? Remember, we saw that under the sixth seal, this fifth seal, sorry. Oh Lord, how long will you judge and vindicate those of us who have lived for you in a world gone mad? So this is God wrapping things up and warning people, this is your final call, like a train leaving the station. This is your final call. Please board now. This is your final call. Because at some point the door closes and you can't get onto that train.
And I think Pastor, even as
plane.
I've struggled with that reality of God's anger and God's final wrath to really purge the universe of sin. I think for all of us who have gone through the suffering, through the pain, through the vicissitudes of sin, what it has caused on our lives, the implications of sin in our families, in our communities, we all desire a place where there's justice, where there's complete fairness and truthfulness, where finally things are all aligned.
I like that, Joel. I like what you just said. Things are aligned. Because right now,
everything is crooked.
Yeah, it's not aligned. That is why God gets a bad rap, a black eye even, when there's an earthquake, when there's a hurricane, when a terrorist bombs out a place and kills hundreds. The big question always, why, God? How could you allow this to happen?
Yeah.
When we get sick, Lord, I've tried to live a healthy life, to follow all the healthful practices that we are told to follow. And why am I getting cancer? Why am I sick? Things are not, I like that, Joel. Things are not aligned. And the only way God can align things eventually is to eradicate sin and sinners.
Yeah, and I think for people like me who will struggle with this reality is to say, do we desire for a place that finally is without these issues, without these implications, without these problems? Do we desire that place? And if we so desire, then we have to allow God to act in such a way that can get us there.
Yes. And it is harsh because it brings pain. It brings death. You know, it is amazing. God calls in Isaiah 18, he says, destruction is a strange act. Isn't that beautiful? A strange act. God is a creator. He's a life giver, not a life taker, not a destroyer. It pains God to have to punish.
But yet he has to do it if he is to show love to those who have sacrificed for him.
Yes. And if any parent is listening to us, we all know as parents, at times you spank that kid or remove a privilege from that child, not because you hate the child, but to seek to bring that child back to good behavior. And you really feel the pain when you see that child begins to cry, because this hand of love, this hand that picks up this baby and nurtures this baby and changes this baby and feeds this baby, must now come and slap this baby on his buttocks. It pains you because you want this hand to always be a hand that the baby associates with gentleness and kindness and love. But you have to do it.
But it seems to me at this point, this is even a more extreme case.
It is.
It's really, having done all that discipline for so long, you finally say that I can no longer now keep you within this space because you are actually destroying this very community, this very family that we have put together.
I remember my father having to tell one of my older siblings to leave home. And I remember neighbors saying, what kind of Christian are you? And you're putting your child out. He says, no, because I have younger children who are going to be following his example. And I can't allow that. And so what you're saying is so true. At this stage, these beast worshippers, so to speak, have made their choice. And they have chosen their allegiance. There is really nothing more God can do to redeem them, to bring them over the line.
And I will even imagine, Pastor, that even as God carries out this final process, it will be most painful for him.
Yes.
Even as we think about it and maybe see a God who's angry, a God who's full of wrath, it will be most painful for him as he executes that judgment, because he has to take this step if, by any means, if he's gonna establish a kingdom that truly represents him.
Any parent listening to this knows how painful it is to see your child on drugs and there's nothing you can do for him. And you must look at that child destroy his life. And literally, that is what worshiping the beast does. When we enthrone our idols, they degenerate our spirit, our humanity. And that is why it is said that the angels are doing what? Holding back the winds of strife. Which wind of strife? God's wind? No. The winds of man's passion unbridled. If God didn't intervene, Joel, in this world in many situations, life would be unbearable. The man's cruelty to man is a horrible thing, unrestrained by God's grace and goodness. And so, at this point, these worshippers have so identified and lost their God identity, their God identification, their ability to connect with righteousness and purity and goodness. There's really nothing more God can do for this world but to wipe the slate clean and save his children.
For the sake of the 144.
Just the 144,000 and all the saints of all the ages.
Yes, so because the 144 being representative. So it's for the sake of those who have surrendered to him.
And I would even say that even for the sinners themselves.
Yeah, for the sake, true.
You know, right now there's a big controversy on about euthanasia. I don't know if you've ever had any conversation about euthanasia, where people have become unviable, so to speak. Late stage Alzheimer's or cancer, some disease from which there is no coming back. And all that's left is a body racked in pain. There are people who are saying now, if I get to that stage, no heroics, let me go. Give me that injection, let me die in peace, with some dignity, with some semblance of my humanity. And if you've ever gone to an old people's home, if you've ever gone to sit on a ward of a cancer ward in the hospital, and you see the kind of suffering that some doctors must face daily, you would understand why eventually God must wipe the slate clean. He's using the word wrath as a strong word to show this is judgment, this is what you deserve, etc. But we must see it also in the light of, if God left man on the planet, man would keep making life more and more miserable and unbearable for himself. So it is judgment because this is God saying, okay, I pronounce now you are guilty. I pronounce now that you are not worthy to be part of my new world kingdom. But it is also an act of God relieving this planet and mankind from his perpetual suffering when he does it. And so we have the wine of Babylon that brings deception, that brings intoxication and leads men away from God. And we have the wine of God representing his judgment, his wrath, his cleanup job of the planet that now restores righteousness. So what can we conclude then, Joel, that this everlasting gospel is a message of mercy, but it is also a message of judgment.
Finally.
Yes. God's love, to be truly loved, must embrace both kindness and gentleness, but also discipline and sternness, justice even. And so for all of us...
Otherwise it becomes enabling.
Yes. So for all of us who have embraced Christ on the cross, dying for sin must also recognize that he did die for sin in your place and mine, so that you don't have to die for your sin. I don't have to die for my sin. But eventually, as we see Christ on the cross, this everlasting gospel, it is a message that the wages of sin has been, is, and will always be death.
Wow, Pastor, that right there is something beautiful, because it says God was the first one to bear the wrath of sin,
yes,
so that no one can bear that wrath.
True.
If they choose the offering he has given, because he has said, I know I'm going to clean this up, but I don't want you to say that I was just doing this arbitrarily. I will take that pain that I'm supposed to inflict on everybody who sins, so that you can be saved from it.
Yes.
So that at this very end, even as God exerts his wrath, it's beyond reproach.
Beyond reproach. Beyond reproach. Everything will be aligned. And I like that it will be beyond reproach, because there are still other questions today about God's justice, his goodness, his wisdom even. But in this time, no one will question God. And we're going to see later in Revelation how very true what you just said is, that everything will be aligned and all will see that God acted righteously, fairly, justly, mercifully,
And lovingly.
and rightly in finally putting an end to this, calling the final whistle. This is over.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Let Us Go Deeper. Please share your feedback, comments, questions in the comment section below. Let Us Go Deeper is an independent ministry, and your support is critical to our operations. We welcome your support. Please use the link in the description below to make any contribution to this ministry. Thank you.